All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting off a new episode, Ginger. Brand new, spanking shiny. Woohoo! Yes. You know what we need? I'm going to steal Jay Duran's music. This is Jay Duran's theme right here from this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourself. We have one, Michelle Velez. Marshall Sparkman. It's like a tournament here, guys. Anyway, so listen, thank you for indulging me like that. I appreciate that. So we are kicking off a new series, Ginger. It's not a new one, right? We just did an episode earlier with this one, right?
We did. It's a continuation of a series.
It's a continuation of a series called Leadership Matters. And it matters, you know what I mean, in different areas. And in just a quick pre-talk that we just did with Michelle Velez and Marshall Sparkman. Marshall's from U.S. Bank. Michelle's from Mortgage Dynamics. One is in California, Michelle, and the other one is in Nashville, Marshall. And so it's amazing that we're on multiple coasts, right? Ginger's in Oregon, I'm in D.C., and we're all going to talk about leadership and how it affects us all, because I think it's an interesting topic for multiple reasons. That, Ginger, are we allowed to talk about what's going to happen on October 18th?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of it. For those of you listening, Fabi has a fabulous podcast, Laugh, Lend, and Eat. And we were just having a discussion. Honestly, you and I were having a discussion about leadership and what that looks like and how you communicate that and what attracts, people. Obviously, I know, for several of us, it's like we do recruiting. So what does that look like? What are people attracted to? And that led us to, talking about leadership matters. And you coined the term, leadership matters. And it does matter. And so in continuation of that, we came up with the idea of, hey, how can we have an impact on sharing leadership advice, information, things you've learned, things, you've put into place, which leads us to what we're launching. He's got all the sound effects. I love it. Dun, 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 dun. Ta-da. So October 18th, we are launching at NAMB National a collective group of authors who have come together to write the book Leadership Matters.
Yeah. It's exciting. I mean, It really is. I mean, because it's a topic that gets tossed around a lot. And obviously we're not the first book to write about it, right? No. We are the first book to collaborate with multiple co-authors.
Yes.
And Marshall and Michelle are two of our co-authors. And so we want to pick their brains. I don't know the stories that you guys have written, so I apologize for that. But Michelle, I want to kick it off with you because you really were kind of like really got my attention going with what you were talking about, right? And I know Ginger's got some questions, but I want to ask you something. You were past president of California Association of Mortgage Professionals, CAMP.
Yes.
And you've done multiple tours of duty, right? For what I got, right? In different positions and different associations. And these are all volunteer. They don't pay you, right?
No, we don't get paid. It's funny because I was looking at it and I'm just thinking back. I've been doing this for 17 years. For 17 years in different facets of leadership within the association.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. What's the challenges of telling people what to do when there's a service work, it's a nonprofit volunteer, versus leading people when you have to pay them and it's a performance review, termination, loss of income, right? There's two different ways of leading, isn't there?
Yeah. There really is, because you have to really look at it. I mean, you can't just say, Ginger, you have to do this. You have to, and so you have to keep motivating them to continue to do what you need them to do. They have to. It has to be a buy-in. This is our goal up here. It's a 30,000 foot goal. This is how we're going to reach it. But I can't say, well, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this without them saying, oh, I want to do this. Let me help you reach the goal. So it has to be a collaborative leadership. You have to work together. And when you're not working together, when there's facets that are kind of going in and creating challenges, you don't get anything done. You just run into a roadblock.
Yeah. Marshall, I mean, I know you actually did tours of duty when you were in the military, right?
That's right.
And thank you for your service, by the way. I find myself saying that more and more nowadays. I really do mean it. Um, and that kind of led you into what you're doing now with U.S. Bank. Is that accurate?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So
So,
do you find like when you're servicing your fellow veterans, I mean, in a way, you're leading them into home ownership.
yeah, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, I think people want leadership. They desire leadership. We need it. And it doesn't matter who you are. You know, even if you're a leader at the top level, you still the some of the most submitted and committed people I know are at high levels of leadership already. So if you think about that, you know, and then you get down to the client level, our clients look at us as industry professionals, as leaders, and it's our job to um, not let them down with that. And you know, it is especially I look at today's lending environment, and loan officers are confused and scared, and real estate agents are scared.
Mm.
I just hosted an event this morning. We had 12 agents show up, and just the uncertainty in the room has never been thicker than we're seeing it right now. So, you know, I think right now is the time that true leaders stand up, and you know, and what does that look like? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. So,
But that's part of it is
Mhm.
figuring it out, having those discussions, trying different things. And because the only constant is change. So part of being a leader, and just like for you when you served, you know, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to anticipate. You have to be able to change. I know, Fabi, I spoke at your workshop
Mhm.
for your company back in January. And I always say I don't have any tattoos, but I said if I ever get a tattoo, it would be shift hard, shift fast, because
Mm.
that's one of the things that I've learned, and
mm,
especially in leadership. And you cannot be afraid to do that. You have to be anticipating what's happening and be able to communicate that people get over that uncertainty that you're seeing, Marshall. And so, you know, doing what you're doing and leading and having events and creating that discussion and creating those opportunities can really help to be able to, you know, calm some of those fears and dispel some of those myths and uncertainty and things like that. That's a sign of a true leader.
But I think, Ginger, you really touched something here. Like, there's change, right? Everyone's changing. So imagine, Michelle, if you said, "Okay, well, this is the way we do it in the corporate world, and I'm going to keep that same style of leadership in the volunteer world." I mean, it wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't. And things evolve. So this, I just finished my second year as president. There is a span of 9 years in between the time I was president the first time and president the second time. And the way I led the first time is much different than the way that
Oh
I led the
wow,
second time.
that's
mm.
cool.
So you have to evolve, just like Ginger said, shift fast, shift hard, shift fast. Absolutely, because if you can't go in saying everything is going to be exactly the same. The environment was different then. Um, we had so much regulatory changes going on in 2014, 15, as opposed to right now. It was more of a different kind of slower market for some people. So again, you have to shift your mindset as well as your actions.
Hmm. Ginger, what do you think? I mean, this shift hard, shift fast. I mean, it's something that, I mean, it's kind of like not only in business life but personal life. I mean, any aspect of our lives, right? You can
Yeah.
take that
And
tattoo.
people are afraid to do that, you know, and you know, Marshall, you're trained. You're trained in terms of combat, military. Those are the kind of things that they teach you on how to overcome those fears and how to move quickly. And it's like our brains, and I see this so many times that I've had conversations with people that it's the deer in the headlights. It's like they do nothing. And that's why I say you have to shift hard. You have to shift fast, because if you don't, you could honestly just have everything go away. And so there's a quote, and it's by Andrew Carnegie, and I'm not going to get it 100%, but basically the premise is you have to be willing to give up everything you've built in order to change and succeed. And you have to, it's like, hey, you know what, Michelle, regulatory. I mean, we started in 2008 with the SAFE Act, went into every single MDIA, went into, Tiller-Respa, went through all of those. And so that change we had to adapt to. Now, and Marshall, you're saying you're meeting with realtors, and there's huge change for realtors going on right now. And so, and that is a shift hard, shift fast, because they have no choice. A lot of states are implementing. I know in Oregon, I think we had 3 different changes that just were implemented in October for realtors. And so you have to be willing to do that. And I think that's probably one of the strongest aspects of a leader, is that when you're a leader and you're not afraid of making those changes, and you're not of making, whether it's volunteer, Michelle, or whether it's for an organization, they're looking to you. And Marshall, you said that people want leaders. They do want leaders. They want leaders that are decisive, and they're not afraid to make mistakes. I think sometimes we think leaders are the ones that get it perfect all the time. That's not true. Strong leaders don't always get it perfect, but they do change and they do adapt.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, Marshall, if we can kind of dive a little deeper on this, right? When you're a leader, I mean, are you asking for trust, or are you asking for, I don't know, I mean, just blind trust? Or is it like, what like you're leading somebody into somewhere, whether it's you're buying a home, they trust you to close on time, they trust you to give them a fair rate, fair closing costs. The realtor trusts you to close their clients because they're depending on their income. There's a lot of trust going into leadership, no matter what level we're at.
I want loyalty. I'll take loyalty over trust, over performance. I'll take loyalty over what they can bring to the table all day long. Yeah, I want loyalty with my clients and my employees. Yeah, I want somebody that's going to go through hell in a gasoline suit for me.
Marshall, flip the script a little bit. Like you're somebody obviously made an impression on you that led you at a certain point. So was it loyalty that you had, or did you have trust in them?
I think it's going to start with trust. Yeah, it's going to start with trust, and trust breeds loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and vice versa. I think loyalty breeds more trust. I think some people are just bred to be loyal, and then the trust comes along the way. So I think it could go either way.
Yeah. Do you remember that your first leader? I mean, the guy that kind of motivated you was a coach. For me, it was my music teacher. I'll never forget Mr. Chris Azera as long as I live. The guy let me play any instrument I ever wanted, and he built that trust. He built that rapport where he could lead me to just do anything he wanted. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think I played rugby through college, and we had a coach. He was from New Zealand, and he played for the New Zealand All Blacks. The guy was phenomenal, and he one practice we were scrimmaging, and we put the freshman guys against the seniors, and these guys were animals, trained animals. we were like hitting dummies basically, and this one guy they paired me with, he kept hitting me, and I didn't like it. I was like, I'm just going to hit this dude. And so the next play he came up, and I hit him as hard as I could. And then he got up and he kind of looked at me. And then the next play happened again, and I hit him again as hard as I could. And he got up and he was like, "You motherfucker!" He's cussing at me, saying, "If you do that again, I'm gonna beat you." And the coach saw something in me, and he started me the next game.
Yeah.
And he came up to me and he said, I'm putting you in because you have heart, and I trust that you're gonna do what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I've kind of carried that. Sometimes you get a shot in life. Sometimes you get a chance. You got to take that shot, and you
Mhm.
got to do what you got to do. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And I think in business you got to make your own shots. Like the coach is not going to put you in. You got to beg the coach in business world. Yeah.
Or
So
show the coach like you did.
yeah.
Right? It's like saying, "Hey, I've got this." And he saw that in you, that you had that fire and that ability. And even though somebody knocked you down, to say, "Hey, that's not going to work for me." And
He
let's
inspired trust. He inspired trust that he can get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Michelle, when you really think about that, inspiring trust is such a nice way to put that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because I think I was using the word building trust, but I think inspiring trust is more accurate. What about you? I mean, what about in your life? I mean, has someone inspired you when they were the leader and you were following them?
Oh gosh, there were several. I want to say my first trip to Washington D.C. with camp and NAMB and Ken Jones.
Mm,
Ken Jones. I was just watching Ken Jones speak,
Hmm.
and he was the government affairs chair, and I thought there is no way I could ever do what Ken does, and I served in that position 4 times, 5 times now,
Yeah.
and once on the national level. So yeah, it was very inspiring. It just it took me from a place of wanting. I would love to do that, but I could never do that. And then all of a sudden, I'm doing it. So
Yeah. Ginger, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, when we talk about leadership, it's kind of interesting. Like, I never thought about the people who actually inspired us or led us. You know what I mean? Because somebody actually made us who we are today, and I think it's a bunch of people. I'm
it
saying
is.
one person, right? It can't be one person.
Yeah.
Eventually, I mean, we're leaving little DNA particles in other people as we go down our journey.
Right. And
right.
it's not just, I mean, you said, it was a teacher. For you, Marshall, it was a coach in college. Michelle, it was in, your volunteer work. We have leaders in all aspects of our life that we've learned from. And I think that's the thing. I mean, if there's one goal, I think, for us, Fabi, in doing this book, Leadership Matters, it is to build that community of leaders and working together and inspiring, as you said,
Mhm.
because it's not just one journey, it's several. You're a leader. Part of my chapter in the book, I said I've been a leader in business. I've been a leader in terms of obviously teaching. I've been a leader as a mom. My son's in Eagle Scouts. I was very involved in that. So we have that leadership, and each changes a little bit. To your point, Michelle, of leading volunteers is so much different than leading someone who you're responsible for writing their paycheck. And that's completely different. So I think the first thing in a true leader is to identify what inspires that trust. For you, Michelle, when you're looking to inspire volunteers, you have to inspire that trust, that mission, that vision, and get that to where they have that same heart, that same fire in the belly that you had, Marshall, to get up and go hit this guy again and hit this guy again. That's the part of leadership. And you can't give that to someone. Someone has to have that within themselves, but you can inspire, you can influence, you can do those things. So I think having an idea of what that is important when you begin in terms of leadership, right?
Yeah. Marshall, go back to that moment on the field, man. This is such a, I don't know, man. I don't know what happens in my brain sometimes. Some things get stuck, right? So you're falling down, getting up, whatever, right? And you're not giving up. I mean, do you remember what was going on in your brain? Can you recall that at that? I mean, I don't know if you can or can't, but if you can, I'd love to kind of, what is that feeling that says, get back up again?
I think the guy, when he's after the tackle, he stood over me and was yelling at me because I could have hurt him and he wouldn't been able to play, which is true. But I just remember thinking to myself, like, no, you ain't gonna talk to me that way. because I don't know. This guy was big. He would have definitely, we would not have been a match.
I would love to get that and put it in like a bottle and sell it, right? Because how many people would just love to have that inside of them?
Yeah.
Right? Guys, think about this. Like if we could actually capsulize it, and maybe Ginger, that's what this book is about.
Yeah.
You know, maybe some word, some sentence, some story stands out to our readers and inspires them to take that next level. Maybe open up their own broker shop. Maybe go get that new job in management. Maybe take that volunteer role and not be afraid of it. I mean, there's so many things that we could inspire other people to with our own stories. You know what I mean?
You know,
We just put,
I was having this, sorry, Fab.
no, go ahead, Marshall.
I was having this conversation last night with I volunteer with a group of guys, and one of them's going through this recovery program, and he was just talking about his journey, and I was like, man, you got to be stubborn about some things. Like you just got to get just downright stubborn about a couple. Maybe it's a discipline, maybe it's a consistency, maybe it's something you're going to do every single day. I mean, you've got to say, nothing's going to get in my way. Then I'm talking to myself now. Listen, but listen, I mean,
We always
you
are.
gotta get. Sometimes you got to get stubborn about some things in your. I don't know what it is in your business, but there's definitely some things that I'm sitting here writing as we're talking, and there's a couple things that I've got to get stubborn about.
Yeah. Marshall, let me stay with you for a second. In your story, was there something that, and we're writing these chapters, Ginger said it's 1,500 words, so it's not a lot, but it's enough, right? It's enough. I mean, was there a part of your story that you felt, oh, this is the one that I don't want to talk about?
Yes, because I feel like I got out of the military prematurely. They call it survivor's remorse, right? So I feel like, yeah, that part for me is tough because, I didn't, um, I feel like I wanted to continue to, I feel like I wanted to continue to serve. And, ultimately the decision to get out was mine. It was because I wanted to pursue my family. Long story short, my wife had left me before I got out of the military, and I took a deployment, and while I was deployed, I was mad. I'm like, well, I'm just going to pay child support for the next 18 years. We had just had our second child, and I thought I'll just pay child support, whatever. I've got my career going. I'm good. I was about to put on captain at this time, so I had 7 organizations and 423 soldiers under me that I was responsible for, and I was just as arrogant as can be, and thinking, I don't need her. I'll just pay child support. A lot of guys do it, whatever. And I remember we were in the field, and I just started praying. I was like, God, if you want this relationship thing to work, you've got to make it work out. And man, I was like, I heard an audible voice like you and I talking, and he said, if you want this relationship to work, you've got to make it work. And I was like, oh, what does that even mean? So to me, the only logical thing was to give up everything that I had, everything that I'd worked for at that point in my career, adult career, and get out of the military. So when I stumbled into the mortgage business, it was, I felt like we were still at war, and still losing brothers, and all that was going on. And I felt like I was letting everybody down. I felt like I was letting not only my brothers, but my whole country. But getting into the mortgage business was very therapeutic for me, because I realized, like I said a minute ago, although I wasn't able to serve our great nation, I'm able to serve one family at a time. And serving that one veteran gave me the same inner fulfillment, just like I was, a captain and had the bars on my shoulder.
That's
It
awesome.
was still able to serve. And I think
Yeah.
that's it. I think, if you're not serving, and you don't have vision, and you don't have that, that why in life, it's going to be tough. And I think when you do have that why and that vision, I think people just naturally gravitate towards that as a leader, and want to follow that. I
Yeah.
always say that man will follow the man with the bigger vision.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Michelle, is there a quality of a leader that you feel attracts other people to you? Is there a quality that you possess?
I I believe it's that people think that I'm apathetic. I listen to them. I listen to their issues. They can talk to me. There's no judgment when they talk to me. Um, I was kind of going back on the other question to see if there was something that I had left out. And one thing that I want to say is that when I got into leadership, it was a little different. I finally got to a position that, with the market going crazy, that I wanted to find out. I wanted to be in the pulse of knowing what was going on, what the next change was going to be. There were too many changes going on in the industry, and so when I joined leadership, it was in 2007, 2008, San Francisco board. And the only position was available was government affairs. I met Ginger, and Ginger inspired me to open up. When one of the first times that I met Ginger, public speaking scared me to death. I could not speak. If you put a microphone in my hand, I would just mute up. I could not speak. And putting myself into a position to make myself uncomfortable made me to be able to be where I am today, where I started out with Ginger, learning how to speak in front of groups, to help start with continuing education. I'm still a continuing education teacher. And as a matter of fact, I am helping to write the coursework for the California NMLS class that we teach as well. So I feel like putting myself out there and making myself get over the personal issue is kind of what helped me. I did that in two ways. I perform at the Renaissance Fair, and I also took speaking classes, Toastmasters. I went to Toastmasters because I could not string two sentences together if my life depended on it.
Wow.
And you should see her now, because and Michelle, so and this is the thing too, Fabi, that we're so blessed in our industry to be touched and continue with these relationships with friends. For with Michelle and with Marshall, same thing. So Michelle, your last presidency, and I saw you speak. I mean, now she can get up, she can talk about any regulations, and it is not easy to talk about that stuff at all, especially for bills that are coming in and you have to go into and you have to lobby and you have to do all those things. That is not a thing. So the thing, Fabi, I'm hearing from both of you is even in that face of fear and of fear that you have to change, you do it anyway. Marshall, you did that. The huge fear. I mean, my gosh, everything you worked for within your career, that's a big fear. And to know what it is you have to do to make that change. And so first of all, identifying that, right? It's like, what does that look like? If you're going to overcome the fear of public speaking, that's a big fear. It's actually the number 2 fear. I think doing a video now might actually be taking over the but it's like, do it, be it in the face of fear, do it anyway.
Yeah, it's daunting task, Ginger. You know what I mean? Because so many people don't ever cross that threshold. I say this all the time. You know what I mean? If and Carl, I think we were talking about this one time. I think it's 3%, maybe 2% that actually execute ideas. And so when you look at the mortgage industry, I remember this hit me one time when I was a full-time loan officer, right? That if there's 100,000 loan officers, I'm really only competing with maybe about 3,000 of them. I'm not really competing with 100,000 if I execute these ideas that I had.
Yeah,
that I was learning. And I mean, and that's what I think propelled me into a different arena because it was just a matter of execution and saying, okay, I know I'm afraid, but I'm just going to figure out what's going to happen.
Do it anyway. The execution, but also communication. And I think communication plays such a role in leadership, and being able to communicate, to listen, to actively listen. And so many times, especially in volunteers where, and I'll give you an example. I have a client I'm speaking at their national conference doing an hour-and-a-half workshop on AI and implementing AI in their business and all that. Had made the proposal to them, and then they changed it. They tweaked it a little bit. So I was having a call with their ops team, and through the course of a couple calls, we got them all back on track because they wanted to go in another direction. It's like, that's not the direction you need to go to. So you have to be able to communicate sometimes to get people to understand and within their own minds come to that decision. And so it's the communication, it's the execution, it's the fear and do it anyway that is so important.
Communication is critical, isn't it? I mean, when you really think about this, Marshall, I mean, if you're not communicating, especially as a team, like a rugby team, right? And then you can bring that back into your Army Corps, and then you can bring that back into your mortgage group. I mean, it's critical to communicate, right, Marshall?
Yeah, absolutely is. And I think, as a loan officer, your realtors expect that of you as well. And it's surprising to me how many loan officers don't look at themselves as, we're the industry professionals in our field, just as the real estate agent is the professional talking numbers to their clients. So we need to be educating our realtor partners, and especially right now with all the fear, and there's a lot of changes and everything that's going on. That's an opportunity, guys. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. So many people just kind of run away from communication. So I want to come back to Michelle real quick, because communication is such a nice topic to kind of wind this down, right? We started with the service versus corporate, right? Communication when you're doing volunteer work. I know you kind of talked about this, right? You can't just slam ideas down. What was your best way of communicating with your volunteers at camp?
The best way for me is when we would get together in a room and we would talk about ideas. Okay, figure out, this is high level. This is where I'd like to be. This is what we need to do. And then we would work together to discuss ideas to how are we going to best implement it. And then that way, we did a lot of SWOT communication as well. But basically, it's getting together in a room, talking face to face, listening to their ideas. And just because maybe I don't like their idea doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. If they can execute it and they can get it to where we need to be, then great. That's a great idea. Just, it's not always about who the president is or the president's idea. It's all about what's best for the association. As long as we're talking about association, it's if you're talking about your company, it's how can we work best for the company. Same thing. It's still, you have to listen as well as speak what you're looking for.
Yeah. Ginger, it definitely sounds like it could be like more than one book.
I'm so excited about it because we haven't even put a lot out there, and we're already getting so many people reaching out to us. And I'm so excited for this because I think this will create opportunities for discussion, for learning, for growth, for all the things that this book will be able to bring. So yeah, I'm sure we'll look at a second book. I think the whole series that you're doing, there's just a lot of opportunities for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are really, they're craving it. And I know I was when we first started this whole thing. You know what I mean? And I think people want to hear from what's the right way to say it? Sometimes you go on and you hear a circuit speaker or what are they called? The big name speakers, and
keynotes.
You're razzle dazzle for a couple of days, right? Yeah. But it's the guy in the trenches that that did the same thing that you're doing.
Yep.
And what do they do? I think that's where we begin to really shine as just an ordinary guys that are sharing our stories over and over again.
Well, and that's what I love about this book. And we did our first authors call last week. And Bobby,
Yes.
you and I talked over the weekend. And you shared with me, you did not realize what a profound effect having that call with all of the other authors and them sharing their stories would have on you.
Yeah,
And,
no.
and that's the goal of everything we're doing. And that's the continuum, I think, that we'll see with this, is creating those conversations from our humble leaders. I mean, Marshall, for you and your service, and I didn't realize at what level you'd gotten. I knew, you'd done a lot in the military, but leading massive amounts of people and being able to do that. And he's such a humble leader. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about you, Marshall. You are, I mean, you don't know what a profound effect you can have on people, and that humbleness always comes through. And the same with you, Michelle. So thank you both for your service, for what you do, for everything you're bringing, and of course, thank you for being a part of the book. So we're excited about that. So Bobby, we're going to launch on the book at NAMB National. It's going to be available. So if you go to leadershipmatters.us, you can find the information. You can pre-order the book right now. We are doing pre-orders on it.
Nice.
And then look for more to come. Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all for being on this episode of Leadership Matters. Sorry, got something stuck in my throat thinking about what Ginger was just saying. See how I get? You don't know what that call did last week. You guys have no idea.
So a little side note before we close. So Bobby, this is so funny because he'll send me a text. He calls me Big Sis. I'm his Big Sis. I make him do things. It's like, no, we got to do this. And keep him on task. It's like all those kind of things. So
it's amazing stuff, guys. So thank you all for being on the show today, and let's get out of here. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
us.